And I just want to say that there's been a lot of what I regard as misinformation about the data center slowing. And both, when you read the Vertiv notes, forget it, business is on fire. When you speak to Scott Strazik, who's the CEO of GE Vernova, he would tell you that the hyperscalers like to play. Like they put some here, they want to put there, they talk about doing this, talk about that, but in the end the orders are up. Right. And that anyone who thinks that the hyperscalers are scaling back, frankly, is just, again,
all right.
not
telling
the truth.
What was the conversation then? When I said Microsoft to you, you've been like, yeah, they're cutting back.
No, I told you that they're jamming their CapEx, I believe, on OpenAI. That's what I was saying.
Well, OpenAI and Microsoft are not the same company.
No, I know, but if you talk to CoreWeave, I think you get a sense that, wait a second.
OpenAI is spending on anything they possibly can.
Right,
they need more capacity.
Right,
Sam Altman has said that.
I know, and by the way, this...
You got it, we'll buy it.
Well, it sounds like Boeing. No, I'm just saying that if you listen to Microsoft, you think, you know what, there's too many data centers being built. The Amazon Web Services yesterday, they don't need all the data centers. What Scott is saying from GE Vernova is that's the game they play. They're trying to build it here, they're trying to build it there. They're not going to let each other know. It's a little bit more secretive. But he said, I'm the keeper of the order book, and the order book is fabulous.
Well, so you like the risk reward also here. Very little downside in here.
Especially for companies like NVIDIA and Tesla, I think NVIDIA has a pretty good valuation support. Tesla has a pretty interesting binary outcome with these robotaxis. So I think out of the Mach 7, those would be the two that look the most attractive here.
Right, so let's talk with the top one, right? NVIDIA, it's had these sort of bouts before, and I guess in the past it was snapped back a little quicker. This one feels like it's lingering a little longer. We've kind of topped out there at the beginning of the year. Are you buying here actively? Do you think the worst is over?
So we think the worst is over just because of the valuation support that the stock has. As we get into second half, they're in the process of launching the Blackwell chip, and they will be ramping production pretty aggressively. So as we see Blackwell ramp, you're going to see their numbers significantly surprise to the upside.
Things like the H20 being barred or whatever from being sold in China. I crunched the numbers, and the hit to the stock was so far above the actual revenues that they would lose. Are those the kind of things that are happening now? That's just sort of hysteria with the selling?
That's right, Charles. So what's happening is that NVIDIA lost the China market the moment they were banned from selling their high-end chips, because now that market is going to become competitive and you're going to have new entrants, and you're not going to be able to make the same amount of money that you're able to make elsewhere, right?
But to be clear, there's no chip out there anywhere near Blackwell.
That's right. And then the CEO of NVIDIA made a comment that even if competitors were to give away their chips for free, the NVIDIA chip is so much superior because of the software that comes with it. So that's really the thesis and the moat that the company has.
All right, I hope you're all doing great today. The S&P finished the day about 1.7% higher, and NVIDIA finished the day nearly 3.9% higher. This is after Vertiv and GE Vernova both reported positive earnings this morning, indicating that data center build-out is still strong. I want to quickly cover three things in this video. I want to address the current NVIDIA China situation. Then I want to talk about the report that claimed Amazon is slowing its data center build-out. And then I want to talk more about what Vertiv said in their earnings today. All right, so with NVIDIA's H20 being restricted from the Chinese market, there's a real concern among investors that NVIDIA has lost access to China for good. Because in addition to H20 sales being restricted by the US government, there is also rising competition in China from Huawei. As Dylan Patel of Semi-Analysis has pointed out, Huawei is not far behind having a chip comparable to the H20. Additionally, Huawei now has an answer to NVIDIA's Blackwell, known as Cloud Matrix 384. While NVIDIA's Blackwell racks contain 72 GPUs, Huawei's Cloud Matrix contains 384 GPUs, more than 5 times the amount of Blackwell. According to Semi-Analysis, having 5 times as many GPUs more than makes up for each chip, being 1/3 the performance of an NVIDIA Blackwell GPU. A drawback of the Cloud Matrix is that it requires nearly 4 times as much power as Blackwell does. But here's the thing, China is not power constrained like the US is. I bring all of this up because investors have essentially written off NVIDIA's chances of ever competing in the Chinese market again. Even if H20 sales were allowed to resume in the coming months, many Chinese companies are already looking for Chinese alternatives, such as those from Huawei. This begs the question, will NVIDIA being restricted from selling to Chinese companies actually have the opposite effect of what the US government intended? That remains to be seen. Now we need to address the rumor that Amazon is cutting back on its data center build-out. A report from Wells Fargo recently claimed that Amazon was pausing a portion of its data center build-out, leading to concerns about NVIDIA. But then AWS VP of Global Data Centers Kevin Miller posted on LinkedIn addressing the concerns. He said that Amazon is still seeing strong demand for generative AI, and that this situation is simply routine capacity management, and that there are no fundamental changes in Amazon's expansion plans. This is very good news for NVIDIA. A similar situation is currently underway with Microsoft, as I've mentioned many times on this channel. Microsoft told us on their last earnings call that they would start shifting their CapEx spending away from external costs of the data center, such as land construction and utilities, and shift their mix of spend towards short-lived assets inside the data center, such as CPUs and GPUs. We need to keep this in mind as we hear about Microsoft or Amazon pausing any given data center project. As far as we know, they are still moving forward with their 2025 CapEx plans. They may occasionally move things around or cancel a specific project somewhere due to factors like cost, local infrastructure, and power availability. But that does not necessarily mean that they have changed their overall CapEx plans. Speaking about CapEx plans and data center build-out, we got some very good news today when Vertiv reported earnings. For context, Vertiv plays a pivotal role in providing critical infrastructure to data centers. In the company's earnings press release, Vertiv CEO said, quote, "We continue to see accelerated scaling of AI deployments across the data center market with strong demand signals reinforcing both our near and long-term growth outlook." This is fantastic news for NVIDIA. On top of this, we've been hearing repeatedly over the last month or so from companies like OpenAI, xAI, Google, and others saying that they're seeing record levels of demand for AI. And so, while NVIDIA stock has gone through a lot recently with things like export controls, tariff fears, and macro concerns, I think it's important to step back and look at the bigger picture. Demand for AI is not slowing. It appears to be the complete opposite as companies are seeing record-setting demand for AI applications, and therefore they desperately need more compute to meet that demand. I think that is the bigger story right now, and it's not getting very much attention as we keep getting bombarded by negative headlines. Looking ahead, be prepared for hyperscaler earnings. Alphabet reports Thursday after the bell. Microsoft and Meta both report on April 30th, and Amazon reports results on May 1st. Market participants will be watching these companies' CapEx guidance very closely as it relates to NVIDIA. Be prepared because we could easily see NVIDIA stock trade sharply higher or sharply lower in response to any of these companies' CapEx guidance and their outlooks for 2026. As for NVIDIA, we get earnings on May 28th, but before then, we have at least two events where Jensen is scheduled to speak. First at Cadence Live on May 7th, and then at Computex in Taiwan. For those of us in the US, Jensen's Computex keynote will be on the night of May 18th. Regardless of the tariff and macroeconomic uncertainties, I think the underlying thesis behind NVIDIA remains intact. Consumer AI demand appears to be very strong. NVIDIA still has a competitive moat across both hardware and software. And when companies upgrade from Hopper to Blackwell equipped with NVIDIA Dynamo, they will still experience a 40x in revenue from their AI factories. We may experience volatility in the coming months as we deal with the looming implementation of the AI diffusion rule and potential semiconductor tariffs. At the same time, I still think the long-term thesis behind NVIDIA remains intact. At least that's my view of the situation. Remember to stay calm in this market. Remember to maintain a long-term perspective and do not make any hasty or irrational decisions. With all of that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about NVIDIA in the comments below. Please leave a like on this video so more people will see it. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.